Hey guys, tonight we tumble straight into the mud-soaked, sock-scented underworld of something most history books politely skip over: World War II laundry. That's right. While generals plotted and battles raged, someone, somewhere, was scrubbing a stained pair of long johns in freezing water with a chunk of what barely passed for soap. You're going to find out just how unglamorous survival was when wool uniforms, trench grit, and human biology all teamed up to make soldiers' laundry an actual tactical issue. You'll hear about boiling underpants and battered oil drums, laundering under sniper fire, and the great soap tablet mix-up that had half the Allied forces foaming at the wrong seams. This wasn't just background noise to the war, it was war. Because nothing quite says, "You probably won't survive this," like a lice outbreak in a field camp with no soap, no water, and one washboard that doubles as a dinner tray. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now, because nothing bonds us like imagining wool underwear drying on a tank barrel in the dead of night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a soldier, let's say British, early 1940. France smells like damp canvas and trench stew. Your feet haven't been dry since Thursday. Your uniform itches like a hay bale stuffed with bees. And all around you, the whispered question passes from man to man like classified intel. When was the last time anyone did laundry? Spoiler, no one remembers. Back at the staging camp, laundry is theoretically handled in rotation, which is military speak for when someone shouts loud enough. You were issued 2 pairs of everything: socks, undergarments, shirts, and they were expected to last. Through rain. Through blood. Through things that now live in your boot seams. Laundry? You mostly do it with river water or rock, and whatever's left of that crumbling soap bar your mum stuffed in your kit back in Portsmouth. And honestly, most guys are too tired to care. Until the lice arrive. And once they do, oh boy, it becomes everyone's top priority. That's when the war begins to smell different. You notice the signs first: men scratching under their collars, odd stains on the inside of helmets from where folks have been stuffing spare socks to keep warm. You're not squeamish, but even you gag when Corporal Hensley wrings out his undershirt and something chunky slides off. So, command steps in. Welcome to Protocol #33B, Field Sanitation, subsection Textile Hygiene. Sounds fancy. It mostly means burn what can't be cleaned, boil what can. And so you do. You dump armfuls of uniforms into battered cauldrons over oil drum fires. The water turned gray before the first pair even hits bottom. A stick is your stirring tool. You don't ask what that smell is. You just hope it's coming out of the clothing and not into it. Some men improvise. Some cut their underwear into squares and use them as scrubbers. One genius boils his socks in coffee water. The result? Aromatic trench foot. But here's the real kicker: that wool uniform you've been living in? It hates water. The British battle dress, thick as a cow blanket, shrinks and stiffens when washed. One good boil and it turns into a toddler-sized straitjacket. You watch a guy nearly dislocate his shoulder trying to pull his clean, but now half-sized, tunic over his head. The rest of you just salute him and say, "Better tight than typhus." There's a fringe tidbit historians rarely bring up. Some troops in North Africa swore by rubbing sand into their clothing and then shaking it out, a kind of DIY sandblasting. Did it work? Well, they felt cleaner, which in war might be the same thing. By mid-1940, armies start issuing laundry orders, complete with maps showing where not to dump wash water, spoiler, not near mess tents, and how to build makeshift drying lines that wouldn't get mistaken for signal flags. You once watched a laundry line spark a minor alarm in a U.S. outpost. Dozens of flapping white undershirts seen from a distance looked like Morse code to an overly caffeinated scout. Still, even with the new regs, it's chaos. One week you're sun-drying your socks on a Bren gun carrier. The next, you're tucking them into the engine grill of a Sherman tank because it's warm and nobody's using that part anyway. Historians still argue whether laundry quality directly impacted morale, but any man who's gone 4 weeks in the same pair of long johns would say yes, it absolutely does. Clean gear meant something deeper than hygiene. It meant hope, a reset, a sliver of civilization among the mud and mess. There's one moment you remember vividly, a frostbitten morning somewhere outside Bastogne. You're pulling on your only remaining pair of socks, cleanish, holy, but dry, and suddenly you catch the faintest scent of home. Lavender. You don't know how. Maybe it came from a bar of contraband soap. Maybe a girl back in Kent doused your socks for luck. But in that instant, as the cold wind knifes through your tent and the distant thud of artillery hums low, you feel, just for a second, human again. Then your tent mate farts and the moment is gone. But you hold on to it. That smell. That flicker of normalcy. Because in this war, even a clean sock can be a kind of miracle. You settle in for the night, uniform drying on a rope made from braided parachute cord, steam rising off it like it's exhaling the week's sins. You know tomorrow, you'll pull it on again, itchy and imperfect, but you'll be a little less grimy, a little more ready. And that's what laundry means out here. You wake to the sound of someone hammering ice off a tin bucket. It's laundry day again, or at least, it's the closest thing to it this week. The sun's just a rumor behind the clouds, and your fingers feel like stiff sausages inside your gloves. But there's a new stash of lye soap and a borrowed boiler drum waiting near the field kitchen. Time to earn your stripes, one blistered hand at a time. Laundry in World War II, especially early on, is equal parts survival and suffering. The protocols are rough, but simple: boil water, stir in soap, soak the uniform until it gives up its sins, and pray it doesn't fall apart. Every company is issued at least one metal washtub. On paper, they're part of the unit's sanitary kit. In practice, they're used for everything: boiling socks, scalding lice out of seams, sometimes even cooking potatoes. If you're lucky, not all at once. The water is usually fetched from whatever's closest: a river, a bomb crater, or a leaky canteen. It's carried in dented jerry cans, heated over makeshift stoves, and stirred with whatever isn't a weapon. Stirring rods, by the way? Officially unauthorized. Unofficially, everyone uses rifle barrels. Hey, a bayonet makes a great soap scraper. The soap, though, that's where it gets tricky. You open the standard issue soap ration, a hard, beige rectangle the size of a doorstop, known affectionately as field brick. It smells like someone's idea of lemon gone terribly wrong. It's so dry, you could use it as chalk. You chip off pieces with your knife, dump them into the water, and watch them stubbornly float like smug little boats. Eventually, with enough boiling and cursing, the mix turns cloudy. That's when you start dunking uniforms, pushing them down like laundry you're trying to drown. The lye stings. You've learned to accept that. It wasn't always lye, though. In North Africa, troops used a combination of soda ash and powdered borax. In the Pacific, the U.S. Navy occasionally issued soap made with coconut oil, better on fabrics, but it left your uniforms smelling like rum cake, which confused the locals and occasionally attracted stray dogs. Historians still argue whether the British or Germans had the better laundry soap. The Germans used something called Kernseif, a hard, unperfumed soap derived from animal fat and soda. It was efficient, yes, but almost cruel in its effectiveness. It stripped skin and wool alike. British soldiers, on the other hand, swore by sunlight soap, milder, if you could find it. But most of the time, both sides just used what they could find or scavenge. In the Eastern Front, Soviet troops were known to crush charcoal into their laundry water, hoping the grit would pull the grime. Whether this worked, no one's sure, but it did leave many uniforms looking like they'd been dragged through a fireplace. Which, honestly, they probably had. Today, your unit's decided to go all in. 2 full barrels are boiling near the mess tent, and everyone's tossing in whatever's dirtiest. There's even a rotating schedule: 15 minutes soak, 10 minutes stir, 5 minutes cold rinse, and then the infamous frost slap drying method: hang your clothes on a line and let the wind freeze them into crunchy submission. Nothing says dignity like trying to wrestle frozen trousers back into shape while half naked behind a supply truck. Laundry duty rotates, but no one escapes it. Even officers have to participate, though you suspect Captain Reynolds has his socks quietly cleaned by a particularly tidy private with delusions of grandeur. One day, you notice his underpants drying on their own miniature rack, suspended like a small patriotic flag between two tent poles. There's something undeniably primal about scrubbing your clothing by hand. You feel every seam, every patch, every mystery stain. You come to recognize your comrades' gear not by name tags but by wear patterns, patches, and, if we're being honest, smell profiles. Henderson's shirt? Always smells faintly of onions. Macgrady's? Smells like gun oil, and is that marmalade? You don't ask. You just scrub. At one point, someone yells from across the clearing. "Whose blooming socks are boiling with my mess tin?" A mild shouting match ensues, ending with both parties agreeing to rinse everything in snow and hope for the best. There's always a snowbank handy. At least winter's good for one thing. Field laundries, when more organized, rely on canvas wash tents with hot water boilers run by assigned crews. These crews are the unsung heroes of the war, rarely mentioned, never celebrated, but absolutely vital. You once heard about a Canadian field laundry unit near Caen that laundered over 8,000 items a day. 8,000. That's not logistics. That's sorcery. Fringe fact of the day? Some early American units, low on equipment, created washing wheels out of Jeep tires and water barrels. They'd dump clothing, soap, and water in, seal it tight, strap it to a vehicle, and drive for a few hours. Boom, laundry by inertia. It didn't always work, but it did make your socks smell like gasoline, which, in certain circles, was a flex. You pause now, wringing out a pair of regulation-issue drawers, your hands pink and raw. There's something oddly satisfying about seeing filth pour out into the snow. Each drop a little victory. A little control reclaimed. Later, as your uniform steams on the line, stiff but slightly less haunted-looking, you sit on an ammo crate sipping weak tea, your legs wrapped in a blanket, and you watch the clouds shift. Laundry isn't just a necessity. It's rhythm. It's ritual. It's one of the last things you can do that still feels human, even out here, where nothing else does. You're not just washing clothes. You're washing off the war. You're elbow deep in gray water again, wondering if your fingertips will ever feel like skin and not raisins, when a clatter of wheels and a blast of shrill whistling shatters the camp's usual damp quiet. You turn, still clutching a half-rinsed undershirt, and there they are, descending like angels of relative cleanliness, flanked by steam and sass, the washerwomen. They're not in the official army records, at least not always. They aren't issued medals. And they definitely don't carry weapons, though some do swing a mean washboard. But without them, entire battalions would have disappeared under a mountain of their own moldy socks. The mobile laundry units, often staffed by local women, Red Cross volunteers, or auxiliary corps members, bring a whole new energy to the muddy world of war. These are the women who turn laundry into a combat art, their weapon of choice being a giant bar of soap and a boiling drum. You watch one of them, her name might be Bess or Dot or something equally stout, hoist a bundle of uniforms like it's nothing. She's got a cigarette tucked behind one ear, hair tied back in a scarf, and a facial expression that says, "Try me." You're a little afraid, and that's fair. They set up shop in converted trucks or tents, with folding tables, crank-powered wringers, and bins of pre-soaked solution that smell like antiseptic dreams. Some are from the Auxiliary Territorial Service in the UK. Others are French or Belgian civilians who've been semi-adopted by Allied units. There's even a rumor of a Romanian woman with one eye and 3 husbands who runs a deluxe laundry for American officers, starch optional, gossip guaranteed. Historians still argue whether these laundry units were frontline essential or morale-boosting extras. But you've seen it yourself, men lined up with their bundles of dirty gear like kids waiting for Santa. You've watched hardened gunners nearly cry when handed a warm, clean shirt. One guy even saluted his folded underpants. The washerwomen don't just clean, they judge. They know which of you eats too much tinned beans by the state of your trousers. They raise eyebrows at mysterious green stains. They chuckle darkly at scorched underwear and sometimes share their opinions in 5 languages. You once handed over your socks, and the woman looked you dead in the eye and said, "Bees want to be free." You consider writing that down as poetry. Of course, it's not all banter and soap bubbles. These women work like machines, 12, 14-hour days in cold, wet conditions. They lift, haul, rinse, and scrub with barely a break. Their hands are red, their boots soaked, their backs aching. But they keep going. Because in a war that tries to strip everything human away, a clean shirt is armor of a different kind. They even have protocols, yes, actual rules. Laundry is tagged with numbers or names. Delicates, yes, some men did try to smuggle silk scarves into the mix, are sorted. Socks are paired and returned bundled with twine. You once saw a woman reorganize a pile of laundry by smell alone. She may be the most dangerous person in Europe. There's a fringe detail you hear from a Canadian engineer. A mobile laundry truck in Italy was rigged with a steam hose powerful enough to strip paint. Instead of just washing uniforms, it was occasionally used to sanitize entire bunkers. One soldier fell asleep inside during one of these steam sessions, and came out 10 pounds lighter and cleaner than he'd ever been. He also smelled like a roast dinner for 2 weeks. You take a moment to look around now. The setup is bizarrely efficient. Uniforms strung up like flags. A pot of tea on the boiler edge. A dog sleeping in a laundry basket. One woman's humming a song you think might be Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, but sounds suspiciously like God Save the King. You can't be sure. She may be blending both. You strike up a conversation with one of them, maybe? She tells you this is her 4th unit rotation. Says she's washed everything from officers' ceremonial sashes to someone's lucky rabbit foot. You ask her what the worst thing she's ever cleaned is. She leans in, eyes glinting, and says, "You don't want to know." But it twitched. You decide not to press further. In quiet moments between rinses, the washerwomen tell stories. They know who's in love back home, who just lost a brother, who's been sneaking extra rations. They become the unofficial emotional medics, patching up morale with a smile, a story, and something that smells vaguely like lavender and death. They know you better than your own sergeant does. Some days they bring letters, or socks mended with tiny hearts stitched inside. One time, a woman passes you a folded undershirt and whispers, "This one's from someone in Birmingham." You don't know anyone in Birmingham, but you nod and accept it like it's a relic from a better world. Not all washerwomen are treated well. Some units respect them. Others treat them like background noise, servants in a theater of egos. But when the washerwomen pack up and leave for the next camp, there's a noticeable drop in morale. You miss the steam, the faint scent of lemon and lye, the quiet gossip, the way your socks came back folded into little squares that reminded you of your mom. Fringe tip? Some units, especially Americans, started slipping small comforts into their laundry bundles: chewing gum, chocolate, even lipstick tubes. A way of saying thank you. A tiny, contraband economy of care. As you watch the truck lumber off, trailing a cloud of detergent-scented mist, you realize something: war is dirt and chaos. But the people who fight it aren't just bodies and mud. They're humans. With skin. With smells. With laundry. And those who clean up after us? They're fighting too. The washerwomen may have packed up their steaming laundry trucks, but you're still thinking about soap. Mostly because you're running low on it, and partly because you're still haunted by the strange minty smell that clung to Corporal Ashby's drawers after the last load. Something's definitely up. Soap, it turns out, is more strategic than it looks. When war breaks out, it's one of the first domestic items to vanish from store shelves. Civilian hoarders grab what they can. Factories pivot to making explosives and engine lubricants. And suddenly, armies across the globe are forced to ask a surprisingly difficult question: how do you keep a fighting force clean when you can't get a single honest bar of soap? You and your mates have learned to get creative. Today's washing operation is happening in a Belgian barn. The roof leaks in 3 places, There's a goat watching you suspiciously from a hayloft, and someone's jury-rigged a fire beneath an old copper bath. You've got 1 bar of something allegedly soap-like, handed to you in wax paper with a label written in 3 languages and possibly a 4th that only chemists understand. You scrape off a corner. It crumbles like chalk. Welcome to wartime soap science, equal parts desperation and innovation. During World War II, soap isn't just about cleanliness. It's chemistry. And sometimes it's luck. Here's the deal. Real soap is made from animal fat or vegetable oil mixed with lye. But when war rationing kicks in, those base ingredients get funneled into more essential uses. Think lubrication for machines, greases for gun parts, or even glycerin for explosives. That means what you're handed in the field is often soap substitute. And oh, you feel the difference. Some of these substitutes are made from wood pulp. Others from synthetic detergents that leave a weird film on your skin and make your shirts sparkle like vampire fiction. Once, in Italy, a shipment of laundry tablets turned out to be compressed floor wax. Didn't stop anyone from using it. Your trousers still shine. Fringe tidbit? The Germans developed a soapless soap called Fua, which technically wasn't soap at all. It was an early synthetic detergent that soldiers swore left them feeling clean but slightly radioactive. It worked better in cold water than traditional soaps, which was useful, because no one in the Wehrmacht was taking hot baths unless they'd commandeered a spa. In the Pacific Theater, things get even more experimental. U.S. Marines learned to crush coconut husks, soak them in seawater, and scrub their uniforms with the resulting abrasive paste. Did it work? Debatable. Did it smell better than trench laundry in Europe? Absolutely. Back in your barn/bathhouse, you're working a rotating rinse system. 2 tubs, 1 for soak, 1 for what you generously call the clean dunk. The soap-like product is melting slowly in the hot water, but not foaming. That's usually not a good sign. You hear someone behind you shout, "This stuff's not soap, it's baking soda and potato starch." A murmur of disbelief ripples through the laundry line. And it's true. That shipment last week, the one labeled Saponified Infantry Cleanser Type D, according to Private Latimer, who swears he took chemistry at Oxford, though he also swears he once dated a duchess, it was nothing more than glorified laundry placebo. Smelled nice. Did nothing. Possibly edible. So now what? You start trading. Soap becomes currency. Officers hoard it. Sergeants run quiet side hustles, swapping bars for cigarettes, whiskey, or intel. You once gave a French civilian your spare boots just for a sliver of something that smelled like lavender and turned your underwear an alarming shade of blue. Worth it. Historians still argue whether Allied soap shortages were due to supply line problems or government underestimation. The British Ministry of Supply claimed that soldiers could get by with less than expected. Soldiers, on the other hand, were discovering what happened when you tried to wash blood, oil, and existential dread out of fabric using only good intentions and spit. That's when the creativity really kicks in. You see one soldier mixing ash with crushed aspirin. Another adds vinegar to hot water and swears it works as a deodorizer, though now everything smells like pickles. Someone else finds a stash of powdered milk and rubs it into his socks. You ask why. He says, "So they'll feel softer." You nod, slowly backing away. But the real game changer? A black market bar someone traded off a passing American Jeep. It's stamped U.S. Army issue, PX standard. It smells faintly of oatmeal and hope. You break off tiny chunks and save them like gold. You even dream about it. One night you wake up clutching your canteen and whispering, 2 bars for a clean shirt. Let's talk about one last curious ritual you've started to notice, the soap watch. It happens every laundry cycle. Everyone eyes each other's cleaning agents like hawks. If someone's got a good lather going, suddenly 5 others want in. A new bar appears, and suddenly a crowd forms, demanding a sample. One guy claimed his soap was made from distilled alpine moss and goat tallow. Turned out it was cheese. His tent still smells like fondue. You'd laugh, except you've used worse. And so, as another day of washing winds down, and your shirts hang stiffly over fence posts, you sit beside the fire and take stock. You've scrubbed everything from your long johns to your sole with questionable substances. Half the camp smells like vinegar, and someone's uniform is now unintentionally paisley. But your hands are clean. Kind of. And for now, that's enough. You pull out what's left of your soap, half a puck of something translucent, with no label, and tuck it safely into your pack like it's a relic. Tomorrow, it might be gone. Tomorrow, you might find yourself boiling your socks in mint tea and hoping for the best. But tonight? You're clean-ish. And in this war, that's a small victory. You wake up with the oddest sensation. Your clothes smell pleasant. Almost floral. Not the usual wet wool with a side of regret. You're halfway through admiring the crispness of your shirt's collar when someone in the next tent mutters, "Why does my uniform smell like toothpaste?" And just like that, you're swept into one of the weirdest logistical messes of the entire war. The great soap tablet mix-up. It starts innocently enough. Somewhere, deep in the bowels of a supply depot, historians still argue whether it was in Liverpool, Le Havre, or possibly a Canadian airbase with faulty lighting, a shipment of cleaning supplies gets misfiled. Not unusual. War moves fast, and paperwork moves slower. But this time, the error is spectacular. Instead of receiving standard issue Army Soap Type B, your company gets a consignment of compressed hygiene tablets, designed for a completely different purpose. Some are shampoo. Some are engine degreasers. One batch is for dental sanitation. All look nearly identical, off-white squares, tightly packed in wax paper, stamped with confusing acronyms like HGT Clean or PX Rinse Alpha. No one reads the fine print. So when the quartermaster hands them out with a proud flourish, "Soap tablets, lads! From high command!" you don't ask questions. You're just excited something has corners and doesn't smell like diesel. You pop one into a boiling tub. It fizzes like a bath bomb. Not normal. You drop in your socks anyway. Across the camp, strange things start happening. One man's uniform comes out smelling like peppermint and mystery. Another pulls his shirt from the rinse and finds it's lost all color, now a pale, silky blue-gray that feels suspiciously slippery. By nightfall, someone's pants have become weirdly stiff and rustle like parchment. And then the itching begins. Turns out, one entire crate was filled with concentrated antifungal shampoo tablets, excellent for scalps, not so much for wool trousers. Another crate? Industrial-grade engine degreaser, intended for tank maintenance. And the kicker? A dozen packs of PX Dental Purifier, a powder meant to clean false teeth, which you've all just used to soak your socks. There's confusion. There's denial. There's a very long line at the medic tent for sudden skin reactions. You start to piece it together with your tent mates, huddled around a flickering lantern, holding garments that no longer feel quite fabric-like. Private Mathers whispers, "I think my underpants are dissolving." And they are. Some men start hoarding the minty tablets, convinced they smell nicer. Others trade their batches in secret. One guy ends up with a full tin of what turns out to be anti-corrosion tablets, and uses them to wash his greatcoat. It emerges 3 hours later rigid enough to stand on its own. In the chaos, rumors spread fast. Someone blames the Americans. Too many abbreviations, not enough vowels. Someone else claims the Germans deliberately swapped the crates as sabotage. The truth? Most likely, an overworked logistics officer ticked the wrong box on a requisition form and unleashed a hygiene nightmare across 2 whole divisions. A fringe note from a French liaison suggests the same mistake happened weeks earlier in an outpost near Lyon, where a group of British commandos washed their uniforms in what turned out to be powdered milk, then couldn't figure out why everything smelled like a cheese sh. Up under artillery fire. You sit down with a chemical corps officer who's come to investigate. His name is Geller. He has a clipboard, thick glasses, and a nose that's twitching like he's just walked into a perfume factory run by lunatics. He opens a pouch, pulls out one of the tablets, sniffs it, and mutters, "This one's shampoo for horses." You're not even surprised anymore. Geller tries to restore order. He collects samples, matches serial numbers, and creates a chart categorizing each tablet by scent and effect. You contribute by placing a bright pink star next to the one that made your socks unwearably rigid and mildly adhesive. Historians still debate whether the mix-up was accidental or bureaucratic neglect. Some speculate sabotage, others call it collateral confusion. But either way, it's widespread. Across Europe, laundry lines flutter with garments that smell like soap, citrus, menthol, or, bafflingly, raw meat. One Polish unit actually reports their entire uniform batch melting into a kind of fibrous paste. The explanation? Degreaser mixed with a starch-based tablet that reacted badly to natural dyes. The result? Camel-colored goo. Command eventually issues a statement. Effective immediately, all soap tablets must be inspected before use. Unidentified hygiene rations are to be treated as potential hazards and reported to quartermaster staff. Do not ingest or apply to sensitive regions. Too late. You'll never forget the poor chap from artillery who, believing he'd received shaving cream tablets, applied one directly to his face mid-shave. It foamed. Then it burned. Then he had to explain to a Red Cross nurse why his chin looked like a failed chemistry experiment. In response, units begin sharing lists, handwritten catalogs of safe versus cursed tablets. Yours has names like Minty Biter, Crisper No. 5, Sleepy Suds, and Don't Touch This One Ever Again. You make a copy and keep it in your chest pocket, right next to your field dressing and that one clean handkerchief you've been saving since Normandy. One bright side? Morale is weirdly higher than expected. Everyone's laughing about it now. It's absurd. It's chaos. But in the middle of a grinding war, this mix-up feels like a cosmic prank just ridiculous enough to keep you sane. Tonight, as your boots dry by the fire and your shirt smells faintly of eucalyptus, you lie back on your cot and smile. You may not have clean laundry in the traditional sense, but you've got the cleanest smelling disaster on this side of the channel. And tomorrow? You'll try again. Maybe with something that doesn't fizz. You're rinsing your trousers when the bubbles attack. Not in the dramatic, cinematic way, no giant soap blob oozing across the fields, but more like a stealth invasion. The kind of foamy creep that starts innocently at your ankles and within minutes has overtaken your entire wash bucket like a slow-motion avalanche of whipped regret. It's happening across the whole camp. Barrels overflowing with suds. Washboards swallowed by foam. Uniforms disappearing under a frothy siege, each bubble popping with the quiet accusation, "You did this." Welcome to the chaotic aftermath of the great soap tablet mix-up. The mystery tablets, those treacherous little cubes of unknown origin, are now unleashing their second surprise. They don't stop foaming. Even when rinsed. Even after boiling. Even after being threatened with bayonets. You try to scrub the foam off your shirt, only to create more foam. You dunk it in cold water, more bubbles. Hot water. Even worse. You're starting to suspect that these soap tablets were either designed for industrial dishwashers or summoned directly from the underworld. Private Llewellyn walks by holding his boots, which are now frothing like rabid animals. He just shrugs. At least they smell better than before. That's debatable. The frothy fiasco leads to an emergency inspection. Captain Hall, whose mustache is usually more expressive than his face, holds up what was once a sock and now resembles a cotton balloon. His voice is grim. "Gentlemen, your laundry is staging a rebellion." He's not wrong. Shirts are shrinking in real time. Seams unravel. Socks develop the texture of damp cardboard. One man's undershirt is now translucent and clings to his body like cellophane. He looks like a particularly modest Greek statue. You start hearing whispers. Someone's gear has grown. Swollen at the fibers. A parka that used to fit now billows like a circus tent. Apparently, one specific batch of tablets had a fabric relaxant agent, intended for synthetic clothing, not wartime wool. The effect? Uniforms stretch, warp, and lose all will to hold a shape. You see a man whose trousers are now bell-bottoms. Historians still argue whether this batch came from civilian stores relabeled for military use or was part of a failed experiment in self-lathering textile treatment. One Canadian report suggests it may have originated from a hygiene tech pilot program shelved after the tablets foamed so aggressively during tests that they shut down a water treatment plant. The real challenge now isn't just getting clean, it's figuring out what's safe to wear. Laundry lines become a source of horror and comedy. Shirts flap with weird rigidity. Undergarments shimmer with unnatural shine. One pair of long johns refuses to dry and has to be draped over a radiator like a wet, disgruntled ferret. And the smells. Oh, the smells. Because each mystery tablet had its own unique scent profile, some subtle, others aggressive, you now live in a sensory swamp of clashing aromas. Lavender. Menthol. Citrus. One unmistakably smells like beef broth. You walk past someone and get hit with a cloud of air that reminds you of your nan's kitchen on Sundays and also floor cleaner. Your eyes water. Some soldiers try to mask it. One guy burns sage. Another rubs his uniform with pine needles. A third finds a stash of actual cologne in a French shop and bathes his fatigues in it. Now the entire trench smells like musky regret and bad decisions. You hold up your own uniform, which now feels slightly waxy and crackles when bent. You contemplate whether it's better to wear it as is or go full rogue and wrap yourself in a blanket like a burrito. Either way, the day's washing has officially gone off script. But necessity, as always, breeds creativity. Someone sets up a desudsing station, involving repeated dunks in cold river water and a slap-dry method with ammo belts. It sort of works. Kind of. Though now everything has faint bruises from being whacked on tree trunks. Corporal Dillon writes out what he calls the foam protocol, and tacks it to the supply tent. It reads: 1. If it fizzes, it's not soap. 2. If it smells like fruit, keep it away from wool. 3. If your boots start foaming, apologize and burn them. 4. When in doubt, just wear it wet. A fringe story goes around about an American aircrew that accidentally washed their entire set of flight suits in antifungal shampoo tablets. Not only did it leave their uniforms dangerously slippery, but during a mission over Sicily, the cockpit fogged up from residual soap vapor. The pilot had to fly with the canopy open while yelling, "I smell like Grandma's bathroom!" There are bright spots, though. The soap may have ruined some uniforms, but it has also achieved the impossible. It made everyone care about laundry. Suddenly, soldiers are talking fiber types, water hardness, rinse cycles. Someone sets up a laundry triage table to assess clothing damage before wash. It's like a pop-up fashion ER. You bring your garments. They diagnose them. This tunic's got stage 3 shrinkage. These socks are too far gone. And then there's Private Keller, who decides to embrace the chaos. He wears his foamed-up, puffed-out shirt like a badge of honor. "Call me the bubbler," he says, arms wide. "I'm so powered now." He poses for a photo. His buttons give up halfway through. Historians would later note that the great soap tablet mix-up unintentionally accelerated the adoption of stricter laundry oversight in the field. Some units began assigning specific, cleansing officers, a real title, tragically, to monitor hygiene protocols and test all future soap shipments. Field labs were set up to analyze tablets before distribution. Too little, too late for your group, but still, progress. Tonight, as the fire crackles low and your damp uniform gently smokes on a stick over it like some sort of wool kebab, you stare into the flames and wonder, is this what civilization is built on? Bubbles and desperation? You don't know. But you do know that if anyone hands you another mystery hygiene tablet, you're going to test it on a squirrel first. You start to notice the sideways glances. The awkward silences when someone walks by smelling of rosemary and regret. There's tension in the laundry line, all right, and not just the clothesline kind. Something about that frothy fiasco has shaken the delicate trust within the unit. It's no longer just about clean shirts. It's about blame. Because someone signed off on those soap tablets. And now, the chain of command is sudsing with suspicion. It starts with whispers. The quartermaster's name floats through the ranks like an embarrassing rumor at a school dance. Lenton. It was Lenton, wasn't it? Someone mutters over a pot of boiling socks. Didn't he requisition beef paste instead of shoe polish last month? Indeed he did. Now Private Lenton's face is the universal symbol of logistical misfortune. You pass him in the mess tent, he's stirring his tea with a pencil, perhaps out of guilt, and you wonder if his paperwork mishap was innocent, or something darker. Soon, the laundry disaster's blame game goes viral. The medics blame supply. Supply blames logistics. Logistics blames inventory tags. Inventory blames the chemical corps. And the chemical corps? They blame Churchill's cook. That one gets your attention. Apparently, during a midnight delivery mix-up at a shared depot, boxes of soap tablets destined for field units were stored next to catering supplies. Somewhere in the haze of fatigue and too many acronyms, labels were switched. Cleanser went to kitchens. Custard powder went to Cornwall. And 2 brigades washed their trousers in powdered lemon gelatin before anyone realized. No one wanted to talk about the pudding pants after that. Historians still argue whether this specific mix-up was an isolated incident or symptomatic of a broader issue, the sheer, beautiful chaos of wartime logistics. One British war archivist described it as a miracle anything ended up anywhere on purpose. You're starting to believe it. Soon investigations begin. Not formal court-martial style, nothing that tidy, but the kind of behind-the-curtain finger-pointing that involves hushed tent meetings, passive-aggressive paperwork, and an alarming number of missing supply forms. The quartermaster tries to defend himself. Holds a little clarification meeting beside the coal shed. He shows off the tablets in their original wrapping, argues that the labeling was intentionally misleading. They all had the same code prefix, he says, shaking a crumpled manifest. And the packing slip said hygienic cleanser for military application. What was I supposed to think? You're halfway convinced until he pulls out another box labeled topical disinfectant, equine use only, and says, "See? Perfectly harmless." A tense silence follows. No one volunteers to test that one. Meanwhile, Chemical Corps Officer Geller returns, this time with a clipboard full of ominous scrawl and a small suitcase full of samples. He conducts soap briefings, now, where you and your fellows sit cross-legged in the mud like schoolchildren learning about dangers of experimental bubbles. His tone is dry, but his eyes twitch when anyone mentions the minty tablets. Some of you may be using compounds designed for aircraft panel degreasing, he says one morning, holding up a uniform sleeve that now resembles boiled leather. If you notice unusual stiffness, discoloration, or spontaneous steaming, cease use immediately. Someone in the back mutters. Too late for Jenkins. Jenkins is fine, mostly. But his entire field jacket is now as rigid as plywood and can no longer be folded. It stands propped in the corner like a scarecrow with trust issues. Amid the accusations, people start to get crafty. A few opportunists begin bartering their pre-mix-up soap for cigarettes, canned peaches, and promises of silence. One enterprising lad sets up a soap swap under the mess tent. For the right price, he'll let you sniff test his wares before trading. Of course, this black market bubble economy only adds fuel to the paranoia. Who's hiding the good soap? Who's hoarding? And worse, who knew these tablets weren't right and said nothing? Tensions rise. A private accuses a corporal of deliberately sharing the faulty mint-scented ones to sabotage laundry day. Fists fly. A kettle gets kicked. Eventually, a ceasefire is brokered with the help of a chaplain and 3 cups of heavily sugared tea. But the mystery deepens. Because even after Lenton's lecture and Geller's foam flowcharts, new varieties of tablets keep turning up. Pine-scented. Rosewater. One labeled only GX12. That, when added to hot water, smells like pencil shavings and makes cloth glow under certain light. One evening, after an exhausting day of patrol and laundry mishaps, you're handed a bar marked Special Soap Experimental, in all caps. There's no smell. It doesn't dissolve. It just sits in the bucket like a smug toad. You're beginning to wonder if soap is a form of psychological warfare. To make things weirder, reports come in from another company down the road. They claim their uniforms are actually cleaner than ever thanks to the mix-up. They got a batch with enzymes that break down oil and protein. It's like dry cleaning in a tin, one of them brags. You briefly consider defecting to that unit, if only for access to their laundry supplies. Fringe tidbit? The OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA, once experimented with soap that doubled as an incendiary device. Meant for sabotage behind enemy lines, the soap looked and felt normal until dried, then ignited with a match. The idea was to let operatives plant soap bombs in laundry piles. Thankfully, none made it into regular army supply, allegedly. You look at your own soap stash now with fresh anxiety. By week's end, an official memo arrives. Henceforth, all soap-type hygiene tablets must be tested by quartermaster assistants prior to field use. Mislabeling is to be reported immediately. No tablet with fruit-like scent is authorized for fabric cleaning. That is all. Not exactly inspiring confidence. But at least now, you've got a list of suspects. A system. A protocol. And a community built on shared foamy trauma. You'll never look at soap the same way again. You're elbow deep in a rinse barrel again, wringing out your undershirt for the third time, when the sky rumbles. Not the kind of rumble that promises rain, but the kind that promises things falling from the sky very fast and very angrily. Air raid! Someone yells. And just like that, laundry time becomes fight or flight. You ditch your shirt back in the water and hit the ground, crawling behind a rusted jeep with your heart pounding and your sleeves soaked. The field is chaos. Steam from the boilers mixing with dust and shouting, soap suds foaming over barrels like it's a war-themed amusement park ride gone terribly wrong. This is washing under fire. Literally. See, laundry has its rhythms, slow, methodical, soothing, even. But war doesn't care about rhythms. It interrupts everything. Even the act of boiling your trousers. The mobile field laundries, those tents and trucks you've come to love and dread, are often stationed just behind the front lines. Close enough to be useful, far enough to avoid direct combat. In theory. In practice, they're frequent victims of accidental proximity. The enemy rarely targets them on purpose. They don't need to. All it takes is one strafing run, one misfired shell, and suddenly your lye-soaked long johns are flying through the air like surrender flags. Today's attack is short but vicious. A few artillery shells. A low-flying plane that might be scouting. But it's enough to ruin laundry day. When the dust settles, the drying lines are a disaster. Clothes scattered, some scorched, others buried in mud. A boiler has tipped. One sock is somehow impaled on a fence post. It flutters like a sad little battle standard. You and the others begin the quiet, solemn task of salvaging what's left. No one's hurt, thankfully. But it's a gut punch all the same. Especially for Corporal Broom, whose trousers have vanished entirely. He ties a blanket around his waist and vows revenge. On who? Someone asks. He doesn't answer. Historians still argue whether field laundries should have been pulled farther from danger zones, but the reality was simple. Soldiers needed clean uniforms, and the closer the laundry, the faster the turnaround. Hygiene mattered. Not just for morale, but for disease control. Trench foot. Lice. Dysentery. None of them take breaks just because there's shelling. And so laundry persisted. Under fire. In bunkers. In cellars. Under the shade of camo nets where water drums and machine guns shared space like mismatched roommates. You once saw a laundry line strung between two sandbag bunkers, fluttering over a foxhole. In Italy, there's a story of American engineers constructing a makeshift rinse system using irrigation pipes, letting water flow from a hillside spring directly into their basin, even as mortars landed 100 meters away. The line got shelled the same night. The water kept flowing. You hear about a New Zealand unit near Casino that used an abandoned wine cellar as a laundry hub. They boiled uniforms over great pulp fires and hung clothes on wine racks. The downside? Everyone came out smelling like fermented socks and Chianti. Still, there's an odd pride in making it work. Even under fire. You remember last week's skirmish. How the medics took shelter in the wash tent because it was the only one reinforced with sandbags and stacked boiler drums. A soap-covered private had to explain to a wounded officer why he was wearing nothing but a towel and boots. "Multitasking, sir," he saluted. Fringe tidbit? During the D-Day landings, laundry units didn't land until nearly a week later. And when they did, their first job wasn't clothing, it was sanitizing medical tents and, oddly, a batch of ceremonial flags soaked in seawater. One unit cleaned 140 flags before anyone remembered to wash a sock. The psychological toll of these interruptions is harder to measure. You're already tense. Every moment of peace is precious. So when the act of laundry, this most basic routine, is shattered by gunfire, it hits differently. It makes the war feel inescapable. Like even your own sweat can't be scrubbed off without risk. Today's disruption leads to an emergency modification of your setup. You dig trenches around the laundry zone, reinforce the drying area with sandbags, and move all soap storage into a nearby root cellar. Which, of course, smells like cabbage and regret. But it's better than watching it all get vaporized. One man suggests fashioning a mobile laundry trailer from a captured German supply cart. "We put the boiler on wheels," he says. "We move when the front moves." Someone else adds, "We call it the clean wagon." Everyone agrees not to let him name anything again. You spend the afternoon reboiling water, salvaging what garments you can, and taping together soap bars like battlefield first aid. A pair of underwear, now scorched and wholly in ways no priest ever intended, gets folded neatly and buried with military solemnity. "May your elastic rest in peace," someone says. As the sun dips, you sit quietly beside the makeshift boiler. Your shirt is drying nearby, slightly burned, still soapy in spots. A strange pride fills you. Not because it's perfect, or even functional, but because it's yours. And it survived. You've begun to realize that laundry out here isn't just about cleanliness. It's about claiming something. A ritual. A small, stubborn act of defiance. The war can take your sleep, your sense of time, your socks, even. But it can't take laundry day. Not without a fight. And judging by the burn marks on your trousers? Laundry's winning. You've barely wrung the soot from your only pair of serviceable socks when the protests begin. It starts innocently enough. A muttered complaint here. A sarcastic joke there. "Lovely starch job on my briefs, thank you." Someone snipes as he peels a pair of rigid white underpants off the line like they're freeze-dried. But soon, the snark sharpens into something more dangerous: collective agitation. You're witnessing a full-blown laundry rebellion. It turns out that foamy uniforms, strange scents, and half-melted long johns have pushed morale to a strange tipping point, somewhere between farce and fury. Men are writing letters home, not about the horrors of combat, but about itchy armpits and socks that now repel water and affection. Private Thistle writes, "Dearest Mum, if I don't survive this war, please do not blame the bullets. Blame the lavender-scented disaster currently masquerading as my trousers." Another note pinned to a barracks wall reads, "Bring back real soap or we march, naked, but principled." And they're not joking. By midweek, soldiers from 3 units are refusing to wear their recently laundered gear. "It's unfit for duty," they say. "It squeaks when I walk," one claims. "My underwear feels like it's judging me," says another. You try to laugh, but then your own shirt makes a subtle crinkle sound and you wonder if maybe it is watching. So, they take action. It begins with a protest line, an actual laundry line, strung proudly across the central square of the temporary camp, adorned with the worst laundry failures known to man: scorched trousers, elastic-free underpants, socks stretched into scarves, and one pair of long johns so stiff it's been propped upright with a broomstick. Someone's drawn a face on it. The sign beneath reads, We wash and no more until soap makes sense. You stare at it, half impressed, half concerned. The protest gains traction. Men stop washing their uniforms entirely. You pass a sergeant sniffing his own armpit with genuine concern. How long before we're classified as biological weapons? He mutters. Command, predictably, does not respond well. The quartermaster arrives first, red-faced and sweating, wielding a clipboard like a cudgel. This is not how military logistics operate, he shouts at a sock fluttering mockingly above his head. Later that day, a junior officer holds a meeting, unofficial, behind the mess tent. He tries to reason with everyone. Cleanliness is part of combat readiness, he says, as someone tosses a pair of mint-scented briefs over his shoulder. They land gently on his helmet. The moment is not lost. Historians still argue whether these laundry refusals should be considered minor mutinies or simply collective breakdowns in supply morale. What's clear is that in at least 4 Allied camps, spontaneous laundry strikes occurred within days of the Great Soap Mix-Up, and each required direct intervention to resolve. In your case, that intervention is musical. Someone starts playing a harmonica, badly, and a group of soldiers form a half-serious chorus line in mismatched, half-washed outfits. They sing what becomes the unofficial anthem of the protest. Musical note. My drawers are stiff, my shirt's on fire. This soap we got is bloody dire. I asked for clean, they gave me foam. Now trousers scream when I go home. Musical note. The laundry cabaret becomes a nightly event. At one point, a satirical puppet show is performed using socks as characters. One is dubbed General Lie. He is boiled in effigy. Applause follows. You realize this isn't just protest, it's catharsis. You're laughing again. And so is everyone else. Still, command has to respond. Eventually, a new shipment of actual, certified, tested soap arrives. It's dull, gray, and blissfully boring. The quartermaster holds it aloft like a peace offering. No mint, he promises. No sparkle. Just soap. Peace talks begin under the drying line. A laundry committee is formed. You are, unfortunately, elected to it. The demands? Soap must not fizz. Underwear elasticity must be preserved. Scents limited to barely noticeable, or mild regret. No further distribution of experimental fabric treatment unless labeled clearly in at least 2 human languages. Fringe tidbit? In a similar protest in North Africa, the Royal Army Service Corps actually drafted a laundry Bill of Rights, including the clause, all personnel shall retain the right to self-scrub in peace, without interference from scented agents or novelty lathers. Command quietly buried the document, but it lives on in jokes and graffiti. As laundry resumes, cautiously, tentatively, you help rehang the clothesline with the new, safer soap. The scent is faintly earthy, like old clay. It's perfect. You share a silent moment with your fellow rebels as you hang your uniform to dry. It's still wrinkled, but it no longer sparkles. Your socks don't smell like menthol. Your trousers don't squeak. These are the victories you now count. The puppet is retired with honors. Someone folds the stiff long johns and places them in a footlocker labeled, "In case of emergency, do not reanimate." As night falls, the camp is quiet again. Steam rises gently from the laundry barrels. The air smells normal. Almost boring. And it's glorious. You climb into your cot with a clean-ish undershirt and a soft pair of socks. You feel victorious somehow. Not because you won a battle, but because you earned the right to wash your clothes without needing a chemistry degree. A few days pass, and with the worst of the frothy rebellion behind you, laundry returns to something resembling normal. Your clothes still smell vaguely of wet canvas and regret, but they're wearable. You're back to boiling, rinsing, wringing, and praying like nothing ever happened. Only now, soap's under lock and key. Enter the cleanup crew, not soldiers, not scientists, but something in between. You meet them one morning when a squat truck with a dented side panel rumbles into camp. Painted on its flank, in stenciled letters that used to be white, is the phrase, Quartermaster Sanitary Inspection Corps, Mobile Detachment 7. Out steps a man in thick goggles and a coat that smells like vinegar and bureaucracy. His name's Hargrave. He's a soap scientist, or so he claims. He carries a leather-bound binder thicker than a rations crate, and a metal sample case that looks like it could detonate if dropped too hard. "We're here to clean up your cleanup," he says without smiling. You're not sure whether to salute or run. Hargrave walks the camp like a man on a mission. He inspects laundry barrels, tests runoff water with strange strips that change color like a magic trick, and sniffs random socks with unsettling commitment. He uses phrases like saponification variance and molecular cling load, which you're pretty sure he makes up on the spot. Historians still debate whether Hargrave and his mobile chemical squad were a formal division or an unofficial patchwork team of obsessive volunteers. Whatever the case, they came in the wake of the soap tablet incident like forensic cleaners after a crime. And the crime? Soapy sabotage. Hargrave opens one box from the stockpile and lets out a hiss through his teeth. "This batch has antifreeze in it." You pause mid-sock fold. "Like for engines?" He nods gravely. "Your feet might have been winterized. Temporarily." One of his assistants, Bennett, pale and jittery, starts making a catalog of everything suspicious. You watch as he lines up samples, some that shimmer under light, others that crumble to powder when pinched. A few smell like furniture polish. One gives off a scent uncannily like peppermint schnapps. That last one? Belonged to the French goat. Yes, the goat. No one's really sure where she came from. She just wandered into camp one day wearing a dented tin tag on a rope around her neck and a peculiar gleam in her eye. The men called her Claudette. She'd become the unofficial mascot and semi-official laundry line inspector. Turns out, Claudette had been nibbling at the mystery soap tablets. A private swore he saw her chewing one, then frothing at the mouth and headbutting a laundry pole into the river. Hargrave insists her digestive reaction helped them isolate one of the experimental compounds. "Invaluable goat," he mutters. "Toxicology's first four-legged lab assistant." You're not sure whether to be proud or deeply unsettled. Meanwhile, a plan is forming. Hargrave and his team begin implementing what they call the Sud Reduction Protocol, which involves boiling laundry water with a small amount of baking soda to neutralize excessive surfactants, adding vinegar to rinse cycles to cut residual film, yes, vinegar, the same stuff in pickles, soap flagging, a coded system to identify bar origin, compound type, and possible side effects. You're handed a laminated card that looks like a bingo board. Each soap type has a color and symbol. Green triangle equals safe. Blue square equals mild irritation risk. Yellow circle equals shrinks cotton. Red star equals do not wash anything you care about. This actually helps. For the first time in weeks, you can wash with confidence. Your socks don't hiss. Your shirts stay the same size. Your underpants feel like cotton and not overcooked lasagna noodles. Even the command staff seems relieved. Lieutenant Morrison approaches Hargrave one afternoon, clutching a suspiciously sparkling pair of breeches. "These made my thighs feel like they were on fire," he says simply. Hargrave examines them, rubs the fabric between his fingers, then nods. "Batch E7. Lemon degreaser. Figures," Morrison mutters, and walks away. A fringe tidbit you pick up from Bennett: some of these cleaning agents weren't just repurposed soap. They were part of a military-wide experimentation program aimed at creating multipurpose field tablets. Things that could wash your clothes, sterilize water, and maybe, if you believe the rumor mill, deter mosquitoes. One batch, tested briefly in North Africa, made soldiers' clothing smell like eucalyptus. The only problem? It also attracted desert jackals. You now understand why some inventions never made it past the drawing board. But for every failure there's progress. Thanks to Hargrave's protocols, laundry becomes less terrifying. The foam disappears. Uniforms behave. Even Claudette seems calmer, though she still tries to eat the laundry line when no one's looking. There's one last incident though. Private Sheffield, always a bit of a wild card, decides to do his laundry his way. He steals one of the Red Star tablets and conducts a solo experiment behind the latrine. Within minutes, half the camp smells like melting tires and cinnamon. Sheffield's shirt disintegrates. Hargraves simply sighs and writes, "Sheffield exception," in his binder. By week's end, the mobile team prepares to move on. They've tested, sorted, neutralized, and briefed you to the point where soap anxiety is no longer a daily threat. You watch the dented truck roll away, leaving behind a neat folder of approved soaps, a 3-page troubleshooting guide, and a handwritten warning taped to the mess hall. Do not wash garments with any tablet that foams in cold water and smells like fruit. You've been warned. And yes, someone draws a goat on it. You look at your drying uniform now. It's not soft, but it's clean. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't fizz. And most importantly, it doesn't bite. You sit back, hands damp, face warm from the wash steam, and smile. For the first time in weeks. Laundry feels safe. You're just starting to believe laundry has returned to a kind of stable, soapy sanity when something strange lands in your hands. A stiff cotton shirt with a row of odd markings stitched inside the collar. Not a name. Not a number. Just a peculiar sequence of slashes and dots, like Morse code that got into a fight with a sewing machine. You show it to Lance Corporal Heath. He blinks at the pattern, leans in, and whispers, "That's spy soap." You laugh. He doesn't. The rumors have been bubbling for weeks now, whispers of laundry tags being used as code, of invisible ink mixed into detergent, of Allied agents smuggling intelligence through their smalls. At first, you dismissed it all as trench boredom meeting too much fermented apple cider. But now, with that cryptic shirt in your hands and Heath looking like he's about to confess to high treason via buttonhole, you're not so sure. Turns out, the rumors aren't entirely mad. During the war, real efforts were made to use everyday items, including laundry, as vehicles for covert messaging. Historians still argue about how widespread the practice actually was, but evidence suggests at least a few intelligence operatives dabbled in the sudsy arts. The shirt in your hands? Hargrave, yes, he's back for a second sweep, inspects the tag and nods. Stitch cipher, he mutters. Clever. Subtle. You'd never notice unless you knew what to look for. Now you're staring at every shirt like it might start whispering state secrets. Here's how it worked. Resistance fighters, especially in occupied territories like France, Poland, and the Netherlands, sometimes sewed coded symbols into laundry tags. A change in thread color, a certain stitch count, even the direction of a loose thread could signal a message. Safe house moved, or watch for drop. Laundry was perfect cover, routine, boring, and usually ignored. Who's going to interrogate a sock? There's one recorded case of a laundress in Belgium, known only as Lizette M., who passed intel by returning officers' uniforms with buttonholes unstitched in specific patterns. British handlers would later say she smuggled more secrets in a collar than some men did in entire dossiers. You wonder how many washerwomen in the past weeks might have been quietly ferrying messages from town to town, camp to camp. That cheery old woman in Normandy who always hummed Frère Jacques as she scrubbed, was that just a tune? Or a signal? There's also talk of invisible ink soap. Real thing. The OSS, America's spy agency during the war, experimented with chemical agents that activated when wet. Applied to uniforms, they remained invisible until washed with the right detergent, at which point, messages would briefly appear in suds or on the fabric itself. One such agent was nicknamed Ghost Suds. Very poetic. Very unpredictable. Of course, it didn't always work. One shipment of Ghost Suds was accidentally used by a Canadian cook to wash dishcloths. The next day, a mess tent was covered in ghostly phrases like, "Berry crate behind orchard wall," and "Knock twice." No dogs. Suspicion exploded. The cook was interrogated for 2 days. Turned out, he just really liked scrubbing. You ask Geller, Hargrave's assistant, if any of that ever showed up in your unit. He raises an eyebrow. We found a pair of briefs that said Target Rail Bridge. Might have been sabotage. Might have been a joke. We didn't follow up. You sincerely hope it was a joke. Still, you start eyeing your own kit differently. Your towel? Suspiciously thick seams. Your boot laces? Exactly 36 eyelets. Coincidence or code? You don't know. But when Private York starts folding laundry in perfect military grid formations, every time, you start to wonder. Fringe tidbit. In 1944, a British commando supposedly communicated with local resistance in Italy by soaking messages in lemon juice and writing them on laundry tickets. The paper would look blank until pressed with a warm iron, standard laundry practice. The only flaw? A dog urinated on the message pile one night, and half the codes were lost to history and sanitation. You start paying attention to the way people hang clothes, too. 3 shirts, 2 socks, then a scarf? Could be coincidence. Could be code. In Warsaw, it was rumored that the pattern of drying garments on balconies communicated troop movements to Allied planes. Shirt equals clear. Trousers equals danger. A woman was arrested for hanging her husband's union suit 3 days in a row. In your own camp, no one admits to being involved. But a few of the officers suddenly get very interested in how their uniforms are folded. Lieutenant Morrison now personally supervises his trousers being pressed. Just checking for creases, he says. He's terrible at lying. At one point, a shipment of American soap arrives. Nothing unusual, just a fresh batch of U.S. Army issue PX soap. But inside the box, hidden between the cardboard layers, someone finds a note scrawled in pencil. Crows in barn. Watch skies. You never figure out what it means. You just hope the crows were on your side. Later that week, someone starts a rumor that the laundry boiling barrel is bugged. Not with insects, actual surveillance equipment. You all stare into the steam like it might be listening. It's not, of course. Unless, well, no. Probably not. Hargrave eventually takes the stitched shirt back to HQ for analysis. You never find out what it said. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But that doesn't matter. Because now, every sock is suspect. Every button could be Morse. Every crease could mean danger, or salvation. You lay out your uniform before sleep, eyeing the cuffs, the seams, the tags. Nothing moves. No messages reveal themselves. Still, you feel the weight of secrets, folded and stacked, waiting to be worn. In this war, even your laundry might be smarter than you. You've washed your uniform in vinegar, coated your socks with fake Morse, and survived foamy sabotage, but nothing quite prepares you for the laundry situation inside a POW camp. You're captured outside Metz, just bad luck and bad timing. A quiet skirmish turns sideways, and next thing you know, you're being marched into a German holding area with a bruised shoulder and a bruised ego. You expect the food to be grim. You expect the beds to be worse. What you don't expect is to spend the next few months thinking way too hard about underpants. Because inside a prisoner of war camp, laundry becomes everything. Clothes are scarce. Clean clothes? Practically extinct. You and your fellow prisoners quickly realize that washing isn't just about hygiene here, it's about identity, status, even sanity. A clean shirt means dignity. A fresh pair of socks means you slept near the fire, not the fence. And stains? Those tell stories no one wants to retell. At first, laundry is ad hoc. There's a rusted basin behind one of the barracks, fed by a slow trickle of piped water that's colder than enemy stares. Someone donates a lump of hard soap the size of a potato. Everyone lines up. One man scrubs while the others talk, joke, plan, or just stare. You take your turn on the wash shift, working your fingers numb to chase stains from collars and cuffs. And you realize something odd. In a place designed to erase your agency, doing your own laundry feels defiant. It's control. Even if it's just control over your own sweat. Historians still argue whether organized laundry efforts inside POW camps were encouraged by guards to improve morale or quietly tolerated to prevent disease outbreaks. Likely both. What's certain is that in nearly every long-term camp, prisoners created laundry systems, some simple, others astonishingly sophisticated. In one camp in Poland, British prisoners constructed a full rinse cycle using parts scavenged from a broken cart and an irrigation pipe. In Italy, a group of South Africans turned an old sausage press into a wringer. You hear of Americans in Stalag Luft 3 using old parachute silk to make laundry bags. Soft yet smug, someone jokes. Your camp has no wringer, no soap line, no luxury, just hands, cold water, and resolve. And yet, things evolve. Someone, probably that wiry RAF officer who speaks 6 languages and once built a radio out of spoons, draws up a laundry rotation schedule. He divides the camp into wash zones. 1 corner for soaks. 1 for rinses. 1 for drying. Socks on the barbed wire fence, carefully, very carefully. Shirts on sticks propped between beds. Pants? Wherever the sun touches for more than 10 minutes. Then comes the barter system. Laundry becomes currency. Got an extra shirt? You can trade for a tin of sardines. Willing to do someone's wash for a week? That might get you access to Rio boots, not straw shoes. You once gave away half a chocolate bar for a second rinse bucket. No regrets. Fringe tidbit? In one German camp, prisoners were given laundry tokens by the guards, small discs marked with initials. These were intended to regulate use of the single wash barrel, but quickly became part of an underground poker ring. One man left a match richer but short 3 shirts. Inside your camp, personal styles emerge. Private Thompson folds his shirt the same way every time, tight, precise, sleeves squared. It becomes a ritual. He says it keeps him sane. Corporal Lesniak from Krakow always air dries his socks over the same patch of fence, watching the sky as if waiting for them to fly home without him. You, meanwhile, start embroidering a tiny dot inside each cuff, your own quiet act of reclamation. But laundry isn't just ritual here. It's rehearsal. Because some of the men are planning escape. They need clean uniforms to blend in. Or, if not clean, at least believably unprisoner. You've heard the whispers about scavenged German jackets, civilian pants smuggled into Red Cross parcels, a railway timetable hidden inside a lining seam. So when someone volunteers to take in a shirt or dye a pair of trousers with soot and ash, you pretend not to notice. You just fold and hand them back, cleaner and slightly altered. Sometimes someone disappears overnight. And in the morning, there's a bundle of laundry left behind, folded and unclaimed. You know what that means. No one says it out loud. The guards don't always care about laundry, but they notice when it stops. That's why the routine must continue. Even when it rains. Even when your soap runs out and you're scrubbing with a stone and a prayer. Even when your only shirt rips and you stitch it together with string pulled from your own socks. Because this isn't just cleaning. It's survival, disguised as drudgery. One evening, the man on watch duty hums a tune from back home. Lily Marlene. Softly, almost reverently, and it drifts across the barracks like incense. A few voices join in. No words. Just humming. Just hands moving in cold water. Just prisoners reclaiming something small but vital. The guard doesn't stop them. He watches. Then moves on. Later that night, you roll into your cot wearing a shirt that still smells faintly of wood smoke and ash soap. It's coarse. It's tight in the shoulders. But it's clean. And that's enough to remind you who you are. You're out of the camp now, months later, patched up, reassigned, and back in the semi-functional chaos of a frontline logistics hub somewhere in eastern France. The first thing you notice, once you've re-entered regular military circulation? Soap is currency. No longer just a cleaning agent. Not a basic supply. It's become its own economy. Welcome to the soapbox frontline, where bars of soap are traded, hoarded, worshipped, and in some cases, fought over more bitterly than cigarettes or biscuits. You're stationed near a crossroads depot. Nothing glamorous, just a scatter of supply tents, half-dug foxholes, and 3 mules that hate everyone equally. The quartermaster here, Warrant Officer Talbot, is a pale man with the posture of a dying fern and the instincts of a hedge fund manager. He has soap. All types. And he does not give it away lightly. Need a full bar of lye soap? That'll cost you. Not in francs. Not even in smokes. Talbot's currency is practical and primal. Boots, fresh rations, and the occasional favor to be named later. You once watched a man trade a tin of peaches, a clean pair of socks, and 2 spoons just to get a bar of American Deluxe coconut blend. For 30 glorious minutes he smelled like vacation. You learn quickly, soap is status. Smell nice, and people think you've got connections. Stay clean, and officers assume you've got your act together. Dirty shirt? You're ignored. Clean cuffs? You're invited to briefings. Historians still argue whether soap became this valuable because of genuine scarcity, or because it was one of the few items that made a soldier feel human in an increasingly dehumanizing war. Probably both. You begin to see the tears of this bizarre economy. At the top, officers and supply handlers, who have soap by the box, hoarded like gold. They even trade among themselves. 2 bars of Sunlight for your reserve whiskey. Type deals. Middle tier, clever corporals and runners, who snag bits and pieces by doing favors, delivering messages, finding rare items, or just knowing the right joke at the right time. Bottom tier, everyone else. Scraping crumbs from shared basins. Chipping shards off someone else's soap while they're distracted. Once, you caught a man gently licking his fingers after handling scented soap, just to remember the smell. There are unofficial markets now. Behind mess tents. Inside hollowed-out supply crates. Soldiers swap shavings like dealers. You get soap in odd shapes, carved down to tiny wedges, stamped with initials, sometimes wrapped in paper like contraband. Some soldiers go black market. One Italian lad named Rinaldi makes his own bars, melted tallow mixed with ash, shaped in biscuit tins. He stamps each one with a smiley face. They smell like sadness, but they work. Word spreads. Soon, Rinaldi bars are as sought after as clean towels. You try one. It strips the dirt and half your skin, but your shirt snaps with cleanliness. Worth it. Fringe tidbit? Some American GIs in England realize British girls like the smell of PX soap, especially the vanilla-scented type. A few enterprising soldiers started including bars with love letters. One even proposed using a heart-shaped soap. She said yes. Probably for the soap. Things escalate. Someone in your unit makes a soap ledger, an actual notebook recording debts, trades, and inventory. You're listed as owning 2/3 of a bar of German, Hossif, and 1 crumbling fragment of lemon PX. You're feeling like a financial mogul until you drop the lemon shard in the mud. The ledger is updated with a tragic little X. You start noticing things. How men with more soap carry themselves differently. Chin up. Sleeves rolled just so. There's even a man who uses lye flakes to stiffen his collar into something approximating pride. Then comes the soap bar incident. It's late. You're on guard duty when someone starts shouting near the supply tent. 2 soldiers, one from your unit, one from the engineers, have both laid claim to a bar of imported Marseille soap. It's rectangular. Pure white. Still wrapped. They argue. They wrestle. Eventually, the bar is flung into a nearby puddle and stepped on by a mule. A full 2 minutes of silence follows as everyone stares at the soapy hoofprint like it's a fallen comrade. After that, a set of soap handling guidelines is issued. 1. No trading above 2 bars per man per week. 2. No arguing within 10 feet of drying laundry. 3. Mule-related accidents are not eligible for soap compensation. And so it goes. Soap continues to circulate, its values shifting with mood, supply drops, and weather. Rainy days? Demand goes up. Frosty mornings? Everyone's too numb to wash. But when new shipments arrive, joy ripples across camp. Men gather like worshippers around a cargo crate, cheering each bar like it's a winning lottery ticket. Some get sentimental. A fellow from Derby keeps a piece of his wedding soap, yes, wedding soap, in a tin, wrapped in handkerchief linen. He says he sniffs it on bad days. He offers you a whiff once. It smells like lilac and denial. You nearly weep. You hear stories from other units. In Tunisia, a soldier traded a bar of French soap for a working pistol. In Belgium, soap was reportedly used to bribe local guides. In the Pacific, one officer bartered a whole crate to get a private band concert. Soap doesn't just clean anymore. It opens doors. You learn to keep yours hidden, inside your boot, under your pillow, once even tucked in your helmet liner during a surprise inspection. Your brain adapts. When someone asks for help, your first thought isn't what do they need, it's what's it worth in soap. Tonight, as you settle into your cot, your shirt hung to dry beside you, you reach under your bedroll and retrieve your personal stash. 2 stubby bars. One smells like vinegar. The other like maybe almonds? You hold them both like they're family heirlooms. You've washed, traded, bartered, fought, and begged to earn them. In this war, you've learned one undeniable truth. Cleanliness might be next to godliness, but out here, cleanliness is currency. And soap is king. There's a tension in the air today, not the usual low hum of dread and damp socks, but something lighter, sharper. It crackles like static through the laundry lines. You can feel it in your fingertips as you scrub your last pair of regulation socks in a tin basin. Something's ending. The war is winding down. Not officially, not with fanfare, yet. But you can smell it. Not just in the spring air or the scent of thawed earth, but in the way everyone's laundry smells, different. Less rushed. Less desperate. You're stationed near a small village in Germany, where the fields are still muddy from winter, but the sky has cleared for 3 days straight, a post-war miracle in itself. The locals, wary but exhausted, keep to themselves. The front has moved east. And now your company is waiting. Preparing. Holding position. Which means, yes, it's time for laundry. The wash stations are set up near a shallow creek this time, flanked by makeshift drying racks constructed from broken fence posts and a few shattered bicycle frames. But today's laundry doesn't feel like survival. It feels ceremonial. Everyone's washing their best gear. The nice shirts. The trousers that haven't seen battle since Italy. Even the fancy socks. You watch a corporal rinse his undershirt in 2 rounds of water, then pat it dry with the reverence of a priest anointing a relic. It's victory laundry. You call it that in your head, and the phrase sticks. You get paired up with an American soldier named Tompkins, skinny, with the laugh of a carnival barker and a tattoo he claims was done by a girl in Algiers with a corkscrew. You don't ask. He pulls out a bottle of something amber-colored from under his bedroll and says, "Whiskey rinse?" You hesitate. He grins. For the occasion. And so, in the oddest wartime ritual you've yet encountered, you and Tompkins pour a few drops of whiskey into your final rinse barrel. It's ridiculous. Wasteful. Beautiful. You dunk your shirt. It comes out smelling like celebration and poor decisions. Across the camp, other soldiers are getting creative. One private sprinkles dried lavender into his wash. A sergeant carefully cleans the edges of his epaulets with a toothbrush. Someone near the mess tent actually starches a cravat. A cravat. In a war zone. Historians still debate whether soldiers instinctively knew the end was near or if it was just mass relief disguised as vanity. But the records do show that in April and early May 1945, laundry output increased sharply in several Allied divisions. Why? One theory: everyone wanted to look their best for surrender. Even the washerwomen return, just for a day. A local German woman, stern and silent, joins the line without asking. She brings her own soap, a cracked bar that smells like old lemons and iron. You nod to her. She nods back. Nothing else is needed. There's a quiet sense of truce in the rinse water. Then the rumors start. A captain from a nearby regiment says Berlin is nearly taken. A messenger whispers that Hitler's gone, no one knows how. Someone claims to have seen a Russian soldier dancing in the street. Someone else says champagne is being trucked in. You doubt that one. But the feeling grows. By evening, there's confirmation. V-Day is real. It's happening. The news is delivered in a kind of hush, like a bedtime story told too late but still worth hearing. No fireworks. No grand speeches. Just a statement passed along the ranks, soldier to soldier. It's over. You sit down beside the fire, your newly laundered shirt draped across your shoulders, still damp at the cuffs. The sky is purple, the stars just starting to show. And the camp is clean. For once. For real. Then comes the celebration. Not parades. No flags waving. But something far more surreal. Soldiers toasting with soapy mugs, some using their rinse buckets as champagne baths. One group of Americans dumps a full bottle of French cologne into a water barrel and dunks their uniforms for victory scent. The results? Overwhelming. Someone builds a crown from clothespins and declares himself the Laundry King. You politely decline your turn on the throne. One Polish soldier plays an accordion while another strums a guitar with 3 strings. The tune is part folk song, part drunken lullaby, and entirely perfect. You hang your final clean shirt on the line. It flutters, proud and ridiculous, like a white flag raised not in surrender, but in survival. Fringe tidbit? In Paris, on May 8th, a group of washerwomen marched down the Champs-Élysées carrying baskets of laundry on their heads, chanting, "Clean war, clean peace." No one stopped them. You drift to sleep that night with your shirt folded neatly under your head, boots polished, and not a single soap ration in your pack. Because tomorrow, you won't need it. Tomorrow, you're going home. You're back in England now. Somewhere familiar, but not quite home. The streets look the same, cobbled, narrow, touched with mist, but they feel lighter somehow. Or maybe it's just you. You're walking with clean boots, a pressed jacket, and no need to count your remaining soap tablets like gold coins in a miser's chest. There's no more ration line for laundry. No more mystery tablets. No risk that washing your socks might cause a chemical reaction or attract goats. But you still sniff your soap before using it. Just in case. You're stationed at a demobilization center now, limbo between war and peace. You sit on your bunk, filling out forms with titles like Clean Kit Inventory and Final Clothing Return Acknowledgement. The phrase, "Kit must be laundered prior to submission," is underlined 3 times in red. Some habits die hard. So you find yourself in a small laundry hut, back behind the supply depot. It's staffed by civilians now, proper staff, wearing clean aprons and white gloves. There's a woman humming as she folds a stack of shirts that look too crisp to have ever known war. You hand over your uniform, pressed and folded one last time. She smiles. You nod. She doesn't ask where it's been. You hope it never speaks again. They take your gear. One last scrub. One last tally. And then they hand you something unexpected, a small, brown paper package. Inside it? A fresh bar of soap. Real soap. English milled. It smells faintly of sandalwood and sunshine. A souvenir. You sit on a bench, unwrapping it slowly like it might vanish. It's the cleanest smelling thing you've touched in years. You smile, but it aches a little. Because the war is over. But the soap? The scent? That lingers. In fact, it starts lingering everywhere. You notice it walking down the street. The crisp lavender note that hits your nose as you pass a shop. The faint trace of bleach and cotton in someone's coat. It happens on trains, in bakeries, outside cafes. You start recognizing people not by faces, but by fabric care. You smell starch and remember Italy. You catch a whiff of mildew and think of Metz. That odd citrus note. That was Rinaldi's soap. And then you realize, this scent memory, it's permanent. You visit your sister's flat. She hugs you tight, holds your face, tells you you've gotten thin. Then she pulls your laundry from the pack. "I'll wash these," she says. You almost say no. Not because you're proud. Not because you're afraid. But because part of you thinks the scent will disappear. Your shirt still smells faintly of ash, river water, and iron. Your socks? Slightly medicinal. Your jacket holds the ghost of field soap and trench steam. These are not pleasant smells. But they are yours. You help her wash them anyway. Because you have to. Because it's over. Because now the war lives in memory, and in your case, in linen fibers and faded collars. Fringe fact you discover months later, in a tucked-away article in a veteran's newsletter. Some soldiers, long after the war, kept their old laundry soaps in drawers like relics. Bars of PX. Crumbled sunlight cubes. Even flakes of lye sealed in jars. They never used them again. Just kept them. For the smell. For the reminder. You do the same. One day, years later, you open your old footlocker. Inside, your medals, a photo of your squad, a hand-stitched patch, and a small metal tin. Inside the tin? The soap. Untouched. Still whole. You open it. You close your eyes. And it all comes back. Steam rising from barrels. Socks flapping on makeshift lines. Mint-scented chaos. Washerwomen humming. Goat bites. Rumors coded in seams. A whiskey rinse under moonlight. A puppet made of pants. And a line drawn across a battlefield with nothing but laundry pegs and stubborn dignity. The war ended. But the scent stayed. The fire is low now. The uniforms are folded, the soap tucked away. There's no more foaming. No more starch protests. Just a soft hush, like a laundry tent after lights out, when the only sound is the creak of wet fabric drying slowly in the dark. You lie back now, the pillow warm beneath your head, and you feel the weight of it all ease away, one layer at a time. Like shedding gear. Like peeling off old, soapy memories. You earned rest. You earned peace. And now, the only marching left is the slow rhythm of your breath, steady and quiet. Somewhere in your mind, you're still hanging a shirt to dry. It's clean. It's whole. The collar's stiff in a comforting way, like it knows how to stand guard. There's a breeze, gentle and kind, lifting the fabric like a flag of all you made it through. Let it wave. Let the sounds fade. Let the scents soften. There are no more orders. No more tablets to decipher. Just the simple truth that you endured. That you came out the other side. That even when the world collapsed into fire and foam, you still found time to wash your socks. And in that small, quiet act, you found a kind of victory. So breathe. Let it all rinse away. Tomorrow, your laundry will still be waiting. But tonight? You sleep clean.